Odyssey Jones fired over allegations of domestic violence, WWE is still PG, another shock WWE departure, and more. I'm Luke Owen and this is the WrestleTalk News.
Support WrestleTalk!
Get exclusive videos over on our Patreon.
On Sunday, it was spotted that Odyssey Jones's profile on WWE.com had been removed, and it led to a lot of questions and speculation. Jones had become somewhat of a meme amongst wrestling fans, having been drafted to the WWE main roster in 2023, but then never used, only to be drafted again in 2024 and again not featured on TV. Then in August following SummerSlam, Jones finally debuted on the main roster in a storyline with The New Day. Jones picked up a tag team win on Raw but was not featured in the following weeks. Fightful note that Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston referenced Jones in a backstage segment but never mentioned him by name. Fightful were informed on Sunday that Jones's status with WWE might have changed following his profile being removed from WWE.com. He was not at Raw this past Monday, and Fightful Select reported that Jones was not in immediate creative plans with no further context provided. His profile removal was not a glitch, and there were talent who were surprised he was taken off the website, according to Sean Ross Sapp on Twitter. There had been reports that WWE were thrilled with Jones's social media numbers that he was pulling in following his main roster debut. As with anything, the internet began to pull the train into speculation station. However, those clearly in the know noted that fans should wait until the full story has come out before they make jokes. Dave Meltzer noted on Wrestling Observer Radio that he was certain Jones was done with WWE, but there were still a lot of rumors around the why, which would come out in due course. And now that story has come out, as it has been reported that Jones was removed from WWE TV due to allegations of domestic violence which had been brought to WWE's attention. Fightful add, we've not heard of an arrest or charges being pressed in relation to the situation. We've reached out to WWE for comment as well as clarification on his status. Talent had not been informed of the situation. Nothing official has been said by WWE as of yet. However, Brian Alvarez said on Wrestling Observer Live that Jones has been fired by WWE. It is worth noting that Alvarez is the only person at the time of writing who was using the word fired. Ibu of WrestlePurist noted on Twitter that WWE apparently learned about this situation 2 weeks ago and began looking into it, which coincides with him not featuring on TV and Woods and Kingston not referring to him by name. If you have been affected by anything that we've discussed here on the WrestleTalk News today, please do visit our Support Each Other page, which is linked to in the video description if you feel the need to reach out for help. Following yesterday's WrestleTalk News, where Ollie Davis talked about the departure of WWE's Director of Production Travel, Michelle Carlucci, PW Insider are now reporting that production designer Jason Robinson has also finished up with the company after 23 years following Bash in Berlin. Mike Johnson writes that Robinson had a hand in creating just about every modern major event and television set you could think of. This includes WrestleMania sets, Raw, SmackDown, and even the Thunderdome. Johnson adds there were a lot of people shocked that he was exiting, noting he was as important as one could imagine when it came to designing the look and feel of WWE's broadcast product. There are those in WWE that say that Robinson was a Kevin Dunn guy. Last night's NXT saw the TV debut of Giulia after her pay-per-view debut on No Mercy on Sunday night. She had a face-off with NXT Women's Champion Roxanne Perez, where she challenged her to a title match on NXT's debut on the CW on October 1st, which will also feature an appearance from CM Punk. Ethan Page will also defend his NXT Championship on that show. Corey Brennan of Fightful Select reports that Giulia's debut was kept very secretive, with a producer and temp music being used as stand-ins during rehearsals. He writes there was a lot of secrecy regarding Giulia's debut, as one would expect, with sources in NXT not seeing her until moments before the finish of Roxanne Perez versus Jada Parker. This might have included Perez herself, as Brennan was told by his sources that they wouldn't be surprised if Roxanne was kept out of the loop. He also notes that this debut slot was always scheduled for Giulia and not the likes of Stephanie Baker or Delta. Plans for Giulia's debut and title program with Roxanne Perez date back as far as NXT Stand and Deliver, where Giulia was shown in the crowd. Debuting at No Mercy meant that Giulia could finish up her date with Marigold, which she had extended. Reportedly, this got her no heat from WWE, who expected it. Brennan adds it was known as a possibility even prior to her fractured wrist. Brennan also adds that his sources expect Giulia will wrestle on NXT before the CW debut. Dave Meltzer had noted on Wrestling Observer Radio that Giulia might have to tone down her strong style style, but Brennan writes there is also little concern with Giulia changing up her style now she's in NXT, with concerns of her being too stiff being waved off by several sources back when she signed in April. Brennan also reports that Giulia will stay in NXT and is set to become one of the faces of the brand as they move to the CW, but tenure in the brand will be relative to how fast she takes to the American television style. Also on last night's NXT, it was revealed that Jordynne Grace will return to defend her TNA Knockouts Championship in an open challenge next week. The show also saw a continuation of the NXT-TNA partnership as Rosemary lost to Tatum Paxley. But there is one TNA Knockout who will not be featuring on NXT as part of this partnership, as Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select is reporting that Gisele Shaw has been granted her release from TNA. SRS reports that Shaw recently requested her release from the company, which was granted under the proviso that she worked the recent Louisville tapings and put someone over on her way out. Fightful reports sources claim that TNA worked smoothly to grant the release and didn't put up a fight in keeping her around. Shaw made a return to Rev Pro over All In Weekend, teaming with Team Rev Pro to take on the Cutthroat Collective in an awesome 10-woman tag that you should go out of your way to watch. She's also been announced for former TNA booker Scott D'Amore's Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, and Fightful were told by those in TNA that they expect Shaw to be a regular there. Speaking of being a regular, and Damian Priest could have been a regular in Marvel movies. How's that for a segue? Pretty good. The haters didn't think I could make that work, and they were correct. Great call from the haters. Anywho, Chris Van Vliet sat down with Damian Priest for an episode of Insight where Priest revealed, confirming an old Fightful report, that he was offered a role in Marvel's Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. However, he was not able to take that role. He says in the interview that he was prevented from starring in the movie, and while he doesn't say who it was that took the role away from him, he notes that it wasn't Marvel. Gee, I wonder who it could have been then. CVV says that we can read between the lines when talking about how different the new regime is to the old one, to which Priest replies, exactly. He adds, look, come what may, I'm good with it. Maybe I do something like that, I go a different route, and I'm not sitting here with you being a world champion. Like I won a world championship at WrestleMania, I don't know if that happens. It's been noted by fans, and has been brought up in a lot of interviews, that the new regime of WWE does feel different to the old one. Not only is the TV and pay-per-view output so much better than it was just a few years ago, but talent themselves feel like they have a bit more freedom. And one of those freedoms is using naughty words. The S word in particular has been used more frequently on Raw and SmackDown in 2024, and it has felt that WWE was moving away from its PG output and back to TV-14. And this was expected to go even harder once WWE moves to Netflix in 2025. However, according to Fightful Select, WWE had a meeting with talent ahead of this week's Raw where they encouraged talent to not curse as much on camera and be cognizant of when a camera is on them. Fightful adds that while there will be less censorship on Netflix, it won't be a free-for-all. Better tell that to The Rock. PW Insider add in their report of the meeting that WWE wanted to remind talent that WWE is still a PG product. And this is not the first time this has come up in 2024, as a memo was distributed to talent earlier this year during the build to WrestleMania, which told them not to curse on TV. According to Wrestling Observer, this led to some frustration within WWE as they were told The Rock, who was doing the majority of the cursing, could get away with it because he's The Rock, and some talent felt that was a double standard. Triple H has said that cursing will not be an issue when Raw moves to Netflix, but that's more of a censorship of the crowd swearing during chants like holy shit, which have to be cut at the request of USA Network and Fox. And speaking of changes, eagle-eyed Twitter users spotted that AEW have made a major change to their roster page. They've removed the win-loss records. This has been a huge part of AEW's identity since they launched in 2019, noting that wins and losses matter in their storytelling. This has factored into stories less and less over the years. They even got rid of the ranking system for a bit and then brought it back and then seemingly got rid of it again. And the removal of the wins and losses entirely from the website shows a further step away from that being a focus. Case in point, Kyle Fletcher is challenging Kazuchika Okada for the Continental Championship on Dynamite this week, despite losing to Ricochet on Dynamite last week. That's all from me today, but it would be ace if you could check out the latest episode of Cutscene Presents Survival Series, where we're challenged to name every single Pixar movie, and some of us do better than others. I'm looking at you, Ash Millman.